welcome to Meet the Artist. I'm Dustin Dumas Weeks, and I have the pleasure of being here today with Tricia Zimic and Larry Dell. They are both artists, and you are going to tell us a little bit about the Wildflower Sculpture Park that is currently in South Mountain Reservation, as well as tell us a little bit about your background. So, first of all, can you tell us a little bit about your preferred area of art, if you have one, or if you do a lot of different?
I do have a preference to sculpture. I've been doing sculpture now for about 10 years. Before that, I was an illustrator. I did Nancy Drew illustrations for the books for many years.
Oh, really?
And I did young adult and juvenile books. And with the new digital photography, that's taken over my business, so I went into sculpting. It was always my love and my first love, and I really enjoyed creating sculptures from clay and found objects, and in particular I like doing animals that are in New Jersey, that live in New Jersey.
Okay.
This one, of course, I had done. It doesn't necessarily live in New Jersey. It's a canine. It's rather angry looking, and the reason why I feel it's angry is because it's got a lack of habitat. I'm about a habitat person.
Okay.
So this is the unfinished piece, but that's my my love is sculpture, and the reason why I started this sculpture park is to draw people into the preserve. People know about it, but not enough traffic.
Okay.
So I thought something big and glamorous as a sculpture would draw people up to the gate, and then they'll see there's a preserve and to walk through the 14 acres.
Okay.
So that's been up for about 4 years now.
Okay, that's awesome. And Larry, how did you get started, and what do you prefer to work in?
Well, I've been interested in art almost my whole life. I went to Pratt Institute, ages ago, and studied painting and sculpture, and did painting after that for a while, and then I stopped doing it for a considerable period. It's sort of like life got in the way kind of thing, and then I started picking up sculpture again when my wife and I and our two daughters moved out here to Maplewood, and suddenly I realized I had a space outside in the backyard, and I had a basement where I could do stuff. So I picked it up again, and I've been doing sculpture for, I would say, about 10 years or more, and it's gone through various phases. I work in a lot of different mediums. I started out working in wood and making abstract sculptures using chainsaws, and then I went from that to working with PVC pipe, and then now I'm working with chicken wire and material, making different forms using that material. And then I was offered the opportunity to create a sculpture for the sculpture park.
Okay.
So I thought about it for a long time. I sent in, actually submitted several different proposals, and we sort of arrived at one that was accepted, and then we went through a process, I would say, over about 5 or 6 months to really determine what exactly I would do, and then they finally determined that they would put down a concrete slab. So I adjusted my plan and created a sculpture that would work on that concrete slab, and it's just been completed, and it's up there now, and we're waiting now to find out when the dedication is going to take place, and it looks like it could take place. The tentative date is Monday, November 26th at the South Mountain Reservation.
So we're going to take a step back, because I want people to understand what specifically is the Wildflower Sculpture Park and how it came to be. So you mentioned a little bit about it,
Mm-hmm.
but how did it start?
Well, it started with the preserve that it's
And this is in South Mountain.
in South Mountain Reservation.
Okay.
And it's the largest of the regeneration sites. So for many years, we've been building up natural flora and fauna, and put a lot of money and time into planting the right plants, doing a lot of research, hiring landscape people to come in. We did a big fundraising. Dennis Percher is the head of the South Mountain Conservancy, which I'm a board member of.
And when you say, I just want to make sure
mhm.
that our audience knows, when you say regeneration, are you talking about the plants that are native to this area that are
Yes.
gone, or are you talking about?
Yeah.
So that's specifically what
Yeah,
you're talking about. Okay.
the reason why we made this preserve and 42 other regeneration sites is because the deer had made such a strong impact on the reservation, over 2,000 acres, that it was dying. And if we didn't make a big move to regenerate with seeds, then it would have been just deer and invasive plants.
Okay.
When I say invasive, it means plants that don't belong there. So they were Asian and European, and that doesn't feed the whole of our environment. It feeds European and Asian bugs. So we want to feed animals that belong here, that live here. So our idea was to regenerate with plants that belong here. So we basically fenced off small areas and then one large one. The one large one is the Wildflower Sculpture Park. Now, the sculpture park is in front of the preserve. The preserve is 14 acres,
Mhm.
and there's nothing in there but plants right now.
So could you tell me specifically where it is? So if people
Okay.
are interested in go, because I'm assuming it's open, even
It is.
though it has not been dedicated yet,
Mhm.
it's open.
Yeah, you can see it now, and
Okay.
forevermore, we hope that what we plan to do is to have a new sculpture every year, but I'm jumping ahead. It's in South Mountain Reservation, borders West Orange, Maplewood, and Milburn. It's in Essex County, and this park will be open. The sculpture park is right in front of the preserve, and every year we're going to replace it with a new one. So there's going to be an open call. There's an open call now, and people could go on the Essex County website
Okay.
and download an application and apply for next year.
And can they also go on the website to find out specifically, because of
Yes.
the preserve is so huge, they can go
Where
on the
it is.
website and find out
Yes,
specifically where it is?
it's right in front of the dog park. So it's on Crest Drive.
Okay.
So it's off of South Orange Avenue
Okay.
and Crest Drive. And if you take that down to the dog park, you'll see the wildflower. Well, you'll see the dog park, and the wildflower park is to the left and right. It actually
Great.
encompasses the dog park. It's on
Oh,
both
that's
sides
great.
of it.
Okay,
So
so
you
people
kind
will
of
know.
can't miss it, but you can miss it. That's my problem. So what I hope to do eventually is not just draw attention with one sculpture, but put it across both sides of the park, which is a pretty expansive area. That's why I wanted to call it Sculpture Park, not Garden, because I want it to be big. And my biggest hope is to have it actually go into the preserve and be in the meadow. So there'd be
Okay.
great, large, tall sculptures coming out of these 4-foot high plants that I planted in the meadow.
Okay.
And so it would rise above, and maybe it would be semi-permanent. But at this point, they're going to be replaced every year. But
So the sculpture, Larry, that you have,
Is
that's
gonna-
currently there,
Mhm.
will not be there next year?
Right.
Okay.
Right. Now, he got unfortunately shorted out in time, but this was supposed to happen in May, but I came up with the idea, just short, right before May, and everyone loved the idea, but we couldn't get everything, all the engines in gear to get Larry to, in fact, the artwork wasn't even really ready yet.
Right,
So
right.
it missed the date, but from now on, it's going to be Memorial Day. And that's
Okay.
when the opening will be every year. And the submissions, I mean, if they go online, they could find out about the application. But it's something that's
And
going to
where
have to.
online? What-
Oh,
what-
Essex County Parks Department
Okay.
has an online site. And then you'll see there's a place to tap in at the top column, Wildflower Sculpture Park application.
Perfect,
So it'd
okay.
be easy for them to find, better than, contacting me. They can go right to these people. I mean, they're happy, I'd be happy to hear and talk to them. They can email me, but it's best to go that way, because then they download the application and I get it anyway.
Okay, so at this point, Larry's sculpture is the only sculpture. You're going, as of right now, you're picking one sculpture per year.
Yeah, one
And then-
sculpture. They could have two, actually, because there's two spaces. There's a 5x5 concrete slab with little hooks they can hook their artwork in, and then there's a large grassy knoll that if they want to get big and wild, they actually have the space to create. So every year, there's two places they can actually make sculptures for. And hopefully, it'll be expanded from there.
Okay.
So.
And so, Larry, I wanted to get back to the actual sculpture. You said that it took about 5 months or so to
Well, the
narrow
whole
down.
process took a long time. The sculpture itself, I would say probably did take about 2 months to do. Because it's, you know, you're doing outdoor sculpture.
Can you describe your sculpture? Can you?
Well, I have
Or-
pictures.
Oh,
I
okay.
can show it.
That would be great. Yes.
Okay, because, you know, in this case, it's hard to describe something like this. Should I hold them up?
Yeah, you can hold it up, and I think maybe later we'll also insert a picture as
Right.
well. But you could describe it in case
Right.
it
Basically,
doesn't
the
zoom in.
concept behind it is that I'm up in the reservation all the time, and I take a walk up there. And, you know, it's a wonderful resource
Yes,
that
it
we
is.
have for people who have been up there. And after last October's storm, that freak snowstorm
Yes,
that
yes.
knocked down all of the trees,
I remember
you know,
that
I
well.
thought that, you know, maybe it would be a good idea to do a sculpture made up of all the branches and limbs from the trees that had fallen down during the storm. So that's the inspiration behind it.
Okay.
So it's silver, and I painted it silver to distinguish it from the rest of the foliage there, but it's actually made of wood. It's basically all made of wood. There is some steel frames that I had to, it's woven wood. So in order to weave the wood in different sections, I created steel wire frames so that I
Oh,
would
to-
allow to hold it together,
Okay.
at least initially. And then, so, you know, it's like one of those things where you start it and it's a very good idea. And then you realize, wow, there's a lot of weaving of wood that I gotta do.
When you did this all by yourself, like take it you don't have an assistant or anything to help you, but you
Well,
were,
there were 3 people who assisted me, but
Oh,
it was just
great.
in the installation and the basic work. Jay Leslie and Paul Perry
uh-huh.
helped me set up the initial structure. And then Jay Leslie and Michael Friedman helped me secure it to the base.
Okay, and that base, is that the permanent base
That's the
you
con-
talked?
yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
And they did, you know, we did you know, I'm saying we, they really they did a terrific job. I bought the hardware and all because we put the triangular base, which is really like a pyramid base, 3 logs, up just before the hurricane.
Oh, okay.
And it wasn't damaged at all. It's still
That's very
solid.
fortunate.
So,
Yeah,
so
that's
the idea
great.
behind it was to use all the different tree branches and limbs, and, you know, I wove them in different sections. I put the thing together about 100 feet from where it is right now, because I put it together actually inside the wildflower area, because I, you know, thought it'd be better to have a little privacy when I'm putting it together,
Right.
rather than, you know, right outside and on the concrete slab. And then I had to take it apart in
To put it
sections
back
and
in.
reassemble it.
Well, you
on
know what,
this.
Larry, we're just about out of time for this portion, but we're gonna come back and then I want to talk a little bit more about the sculpture and get an idea of why this sculpture and not another one. So you are looking at Meet the Artist on Dustin Dumas Weeks, and we will be right back.
Once you're hit by a train, this is the size of bag that we'll use to collect what's left of you on the tracks.
It was a horrible tragedy that could have been averted if we had just stayed off the tracks.
I don't want to have to be the one that has to go tell your parents that you're dead.
Make the right choice. Stay off the tracks.
welcome back to Meet the Artist. I am Dustin Dumas Weeks. I am here with Tricia Zimic and with Larry Dell. And Larry, you were just telling us a little bit more about your sculpture that is
Right.
currently in the Wildflower Sculpture Park
Right.
in South Mountain Reservation. And just so people who are looking will know where it is sandwiched, I guess, in between the dog park, if you're familiar with it.
Right.
Or
Yeah,
around the dog park.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. If you go up to the dog park, you really can't miss it.
Okay.
It's hard to miss.
Perfect. So you were
Right.
telling us a little bit about how you put it together and
Right.
the type of material you use and how
Right.
where the material came
Basically,
from.
wood. I mean, I
How did you
collect-
decide on that sculpture? Why
Well,
that?
that's a good question. I don't even know if I can answer that because you know
Because it's such a good question, right?
Causes me to go back into my thought process, and very often I'll tell you what was difficult for me about this, aside from the actual construction, is that usually when I work, I'm constantly revising and getting it to a certain point. It's finished. Then I look at it the next day. I say, no, it's not finished, and I got to change it. I got to, and then this may go on for 6 or 7 iterations, and sometimes
Really?
Things. That's just the way I work and the way it comes natural to me. So this is a little different because I had to make decisions that I was going to live with, because like at this point I can make little adjustments to it, and I can add little pieces, continue weaving. I mean, I could go nuts if I wanted to, but
You sort of have to stop yourself at some point.
you have to you have to come up with a construction method, and there's a lot of construction involved with this. Come up with a way to construct it, and then go with that. So it leaves less room for alterations and changes. And I guess that in general, if you're doing a big, outdoor piece, that's what you have to do. You have to come up basically with a finished product, either on paper or in your head, and then go with it, because, you don't have the same kind of flexibility that you do in your studio.
So you had a prototype, whether it was on paper or in your
Right.
visual,
Right.
in your mind or something.
Right. I
and
went
that-
through a few different versions, and then at one point, it wasn't going to be on a concrete slab. So then it was, the decision was made to pour a concrete slab, a 5x5 slab. So then I had to make certain adjustments so that the thing fit on the 5x5 slab. So I actually, constructed out of plywood a 5x5 piece of wood, exactly the same dimensions as the slab, and set it up on that first. So I knew, or I hoped I knew that when we moved it, it was going to fit. And luckily it did
so
work
it
out.
was actually built on this plywood, and you
Right.
actually physically lifted it and put it on the concrete
right.
slab.
Right. We
Okay.
took all the pieces apart. I took all the pieces apart, and actually right before the storm,
Okay.
and brought them back to my studio. Then we moved the triangular base, the pyramid base, to its final place right now on the concrete slab. We secured it to the slab, and then over a period of the next weekend, I moved all the pieces back and put them together.
Okay. And how long did it took like 2 full days of the weekend, or?
Yeah, 2 full days.
Okay.
Because there's always adjustments, and when I constructed it first, I was a little more casual than I was when I finally put it together, and I didn't I didn't secure it in the same way. So I had to make sure that it was more permanent, and that it would really last outdoors.
Because this is going to be here for the next
That was
6
the
months or so.
criteria?
So it's got to be
Yes.
pretty
The artist.
secure. So that's
Okay.
It's going to
that
have
was the
to
process.
withstand wind, rain, ice. And I even saw little kids, we had to put up a sign, coming up and like playing with his little,
The
you know,
twigs
the
apart.
twigs. And so he had to put
Oh.
up a sign, no touching. But other than that, it's going to be outside, so all of the elements are going to be upon it. So hopefully
Right.
we won't encounter another, severe storm like we just did
Right,
with the
right.
hurricane. But I think
It'll
when it
last.
did snow last
Yeah.
week, it looked extraordinary
yes.
with the snow underneath it. So that's the one thing that's really beautiful about outdoor sculpture, is that it is outside, it's in the open environment. And this piece really changes amazingly, beautifully with the sun and with the snow, and it's just, that's the difference between indoor sculpture and outdoor sculpture. You have the environment to contend with, and hopefully the environment is friendly and the artwork is friendly with the environment. It can withstand
Tricia,
it.
when you're looking at, and I know you're probably, I'm sure it's a larger committee, when you're looking at different prospective artists with their work, are you looking only for sculptures? Because something that came to mind is that I saw a documentary where they actually had an oil painting where I can't remember the artist's name, unfortunately, but they actually buried it, and so it was outside, and they brought it up after several months, and she'd paint on it again, and so there was that outside element, rain, snow, whatever happened while it was underground.
Yeah.
What are you looking for, like for artists who are interested in applying for next year? I know, I'm sure it's probably a dynamic process, but what do you look for?
It's a good question. All of the applications are coming to me. I'm going to find 3 out of whatever, hundreds of artists that will submit.
Okay.
I guess number one, it has to look like it's going to withstand, again, the elements.
Okay.
It has to look sturdy and strong. But outside of that, it has to have, a real appeal. Like Larry's work has a real strong fundamental appeal. I think this is his best work I've ever seen. I've known him for many years, and I'm just so pleased that this came out as beautiful. I knew it was going to come out good, but you never know what you're going to. I mean, we picked him. We picked him. We didn't necessarily pick a sculpture because it wasn't done yet. He gave some ideas, but so all of the artists are going to give sketches and show what they've done before. And then I'm going to look through that and then pick out 3 artists, and then this goes to a committee with the county, and they're going to end up picking the finalist.
And one thing I did want to point out is that, I don't know if we were on camera at the time, but you mentioned that this sculpture is actually 10 feet tall.
Right.
So does that have...
The size
Yes.
does not matter.
So it could be a small...
Right, it could be, well,
smaller
I would hope
piece,
it's
or-
not too small. I would like to make it a little bit big, but whatever. I mean, as long as it has impact and says something that relates to the outside, to the environment,
Okay.
something that picks up the light and does something and says something to people and draws them in. That's number one. My number one criteria is like, get people to come and look at your work. You want people to be drawn to your work. Of course, something 10 feet tall, painted silver, you're just going to want to come over and see it.
Exactly.
So I think already, the kids coming up and wanting to play with it is a good sign. So if I could spread that out and have, say, 4 pieces, 2 artists displaying their work, I think that's what my goal is.
And just to remind people, it's the Wildflower Sculpture Park, and that is in the South Mountain Reservation. You said it's off Crest Drive.
Off Crest Drive in Essex County.
In Essex
New
County, between the dog park.
Yes, and by the way, we kind of prefer to have New Jersey artists. It's a New Jersey thing. Essex County gives them a little preference there for their own county, but anybody is allowed to submit their resume, but New Jersey artists will get preference.
Okay. I wanted to ask you about the silver. Why silver, not gold, blue, yellow? Why silver?
Well, it's a very practical reason, because the steel wire that I was using to make the frames was silver.
Okay.
So I wanted, basically, you don't see the steel wire. It's to
Okay.
make it disappear. The wood painted the silver aluminum color just appears to be the whole thing. So.
You did have some ideas initially. He had a couple of other sketches, if I may talk
Right,
about
yeah.
them. Big, like, furry balls, look like giant furry balls, but they're
You're
made out of
kidding,
wood.
wow.
Right.
And each one was like a primary color. So yellow, red, blue, and they were really cool, and they were going to be really large, but I think practically speaking, this one works better. Plus, we were talking about using this pad because we just put it in, and why we're not using it. So,
of course.
and there was
Right.
3 of them, and so this kind of went because of
Practical
practicality.
considerations. Yeah, there was a lot of
Okay.
practical considerations, and, you know, you have to sometimes, at least in this case, you know, I don't have the means to, you know, create my wildest fantasies, you know, because I don't have, you know,
Our boundaries.
dozens of, you know, assistants or, you know, endless supply of money or a big gallery behind me. So, you know, I had to be practical, which, you know, sometimes it's hard for me. But that, in this case, you know, I knew that I had to make certain decisions and go with them.
Okay, we have about a minute left. Is there anything that you'd like to tell us?
Well, I'd like to say that this sculpture will be for sale.
Oh,
And
thank
so,
you for telling us that, yes.
Afterwards, there are many places it could go.
Okay.
But I would think a township or a county might be interested in purchasing this after it leaves the park.
And how would people find out about, if they're interested in purchasing, would
They
they?
could contact me or contact Larry directly. There's information about Larry on the sign in front of his sculpture. And
Okay.
Also Essex County will have all my information and I can help with that.
Okay, so Larry, do you have a website?
I don't have a website.
Okay.
No.
All right,
You
so
can just
people can contact
me
you.
through my email address. But you know, I would also encourage people to go up to the wildflower reforestation area because it's a tremendous resource, and because it's fenced in, I know a lot of people are reluctant to go inside, but it's really another aspect of the entire South Mountain Reservation, and it's very surprising the different kinds of environments or ecological areas that are contained in this one 14-acre site. It's really
Okay.
worth seeing.
Yeah,
That is wonderful. Thank you so much for being here. Again, the Wildflower Sculpture Park is in South Mountain Reservation. It is between the dog park yeah, on Crest Drive. This is Meet the Artist. I'm Dustin Dumas Weeks. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you so much
Thank
for
you,
sharing
Dustin.
your art and the
Thank you for having us.
park.
Thank you.
Thank you.